Donald Trump has his eyes on Venezuela's massive oil reserves following the dramatic weekend capture of Nicolas Maduro. The U.S. president expects oil riches will soon start flowing to American companies. But industry analysts warn decaying infrastructure and political uncertainty could prove to be significant hurdles. The CBC's Hillary Johnstone joins us with more. So we're hearing oil executives will soon meet with the Trump administration about Venezuela. How are markets reacting to all of this? Because this is the first day that markets been open since this happened on the weekend.
That's right. So the price of North American oil, it has gone up a little bit today. Remember that it's still much lower than where it was just a couple of years ago even. But when you take a look at some of those Canadian oil and gas companies, the price of their stock has been lower today. Now, some analysts say that they expect that to be short-lived because it would take years, experts say, for Venezuela oil to really come into direct competition with Canadian oil. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in just a moment. But of course, the reason why markets are reacting to all of this is because Venezuela does have the world's largest proven oil reserves. And we have a map here that we can show you. A lot of it is in that region that you see circled there called the Orinoco Belt. But most of it, more than 85% of it, is this heavy crude, which needs to be refined. And those refineries on the U.S. Gulf Coast, that could potentially at some point be a destination for it. Of course, Donald Trump has said that he wants American oil companies to come in, spend billions, because that's what analysts say would be necessary in order to update the infrastructure there. And if we take a look at just Venezuelan oil exports, we have a graphic here that we can show you. Even though they have the world's largest known reserves, their output is still very small compared to other major players in the market. Donald Trump wants American producers to go in and spend all of this to bring the infrastructure back up to speed. But experts say that that could take a lot of time and also a lot of money. Here is what we heard from one industry analyst.
The one thing that's overarching the entire global picture is that it's the consensus opinion that U.S. production is peaking and plateauing, and the Venezuelan production, by the time it gets on, might come in handy, maybe half a decade or a decade away from now. So it is possible, but I mean, certainly that's a lot of money and a lot of things have to go right to bring that oil out of the ground.
One of the things that would have to go right is for the political situation to stabilize, because the other thing that experts have said is that any private company or publicly traded companies that need to go and speak with their board or their shareholders, that they might be really hesitant to go and make huge investments in an area in a country where the leadership situation, the political situation is still this massive question mark right now, which of course it is in Venezuela.
Canadian oil has long benefited from the decline in Venezuelan oil production because our oil is similar to their oil, heavy crude. We're just hearing from Alberta Premier Danielle Smith. What do we know about the possible impact?
Well, she is certainly thinking about the possible impact, because it could be that down the road that maybe that heavy Canadian crude could come into direct competition with that heavy Venezuelan crude. They're very, very similar. Remember that a lot of the Canadian crude is refined in the U.S. Midwest, but the concern here would be those refineries along the U.S. Gulf Coast. So here's what we're hearing from Alberta's Premier Danielle Smith. She's very clearly thinking about this, saying, quote, "Recent events surrounding Venezuelan dictator Nicolas Maduro emphasize the importance that we expedite the development of pipelines to diversify our oil export markets, including a new Indigenous co-owned bitumen pipeline to BC's northwest coast to reach Asian markets." She goes on to say that she expects the federal government to move forward with urgency, remembering that the Alberta government here is continuing that work to submit their application to the Major Projects Office. So a lot of people thinking about this. But experts say it could still be a long time before Canadian crude would be in such direct competition with Venezuelan crude. And some U.S. analysts say that they're not that concerned about this, and they don't think that Canadian producers should be that concerned. Here's what we heard from one expert.
The Midwest of the United States takes most of the Canadian imports, and that's pipeline locked. Our refineries there are optimized to Canadian crude. They don't have other real sources. The pipelines flow south. They don't come north. They're not taking imports from the water. We need those Canadian imports. Less oil gets sent to the Gulf Coast.
So that's one analyst take, but certainly you know that a lot of major players in the Canadian markets are keeping a close eye on all of this.
They sure are. Hillary, thank you.
Thank you.